各位来宾，大家好。现在我们下午的这个 session 就正式开始。Ladies and gentlemen, let's start now and for the afternoon session. And so I would like to invite the host for the next session to just introduce the session, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Picken. I'm the manager here at Wall Street Journal Chinese, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk about something I'm not familiar with. So I'm here to learn with everyone as well. So it's crowdfund, how to construct the ecosystem of crowdfund in the big market. We're very fortunate to have four very distinguished speakers for this panel. Let's invite them to the stage. Michael Meyer, please come back to the stage. I know you listened to his insights this morning. Mr. Zhu Wang, please come to the stage as well, coming from the World Bank. And Picken, Mr. Picken. And last but not least, we already know Mr. Zhang Xiaochen. I'm sure you've already listened to most of the speakers, so I don't waste any more time here going through the very impressive resume and titles. Let's start with Mr. Zhang Xiaochen to lay us the groundwork of his idea of what is the big market and what's the purpose of, and also what's the future of this very tiny, little but very promising, very fast-growing sector in this big market.
Thank you very much, and sorry, me again. And I would like to start from the World Bank Group report on crowdfunding potential, which Jason was one of the co-authors. And this report laid out the crowdfunding potential globally, and with specific numbers for emerging market. And I remember the numbers that till 2020, that we have the potential of $960 billion scale globally, and China was around will be around 30 or 40% of the total potential. And you know, there is the rank and also for other markets, and the emerging market actually have really great potential for crowdfunding, and the reason for that is very clear. That's when you just go back to the history of the international development. That you know, for which countries are ready to just move from stage 1 to stage 2, and which countries are now ready to just change their readiness or their assets, or convert their assets into opportunity or into business. Now, it's emerging markets, and so that's why in the startups and also the innovators in those emerging markets, they are facing a huge challenge. That is the access to finance. And when I was in working with the World Bank, that we did a lot of research or interviews with the entrepreneurs. The first, you know, list a number of barriers. What are the number one barriers to prevent you to just move from stage 0 to 1. And so access to finance is listed as number 1 by many. And from all the criteria, access to finance is always the biggest challenge in all countries. This is not only in the developing country, actually in the US is also huge. And you know, another study I ran for, and you know, for example, in US, that's when you from an idea to the idea to be financed, the failure rate is extremely high, and out of 1,000, only one will just move to that stage. And of course, the quality of the idea and the business plan or feasibility matters, but access to finance is really one of the key issues, which actually also make it extremely difficult for innovators and startups to move to the next stage. So for such big economies, like no matter developed or developing, we are facing the same challenge. One, that there are great number of opportunities, and two, that we have people, we have innovators who have technology know-how and who have the knowledge, who are eager to really convert those opportunities or harvest those opportunities, but they don't have access to finance. In such markets, crowdfunding can really be a great value addition to the existing structure. So I want to end by saying that not only in develop, but also in not only in the developing, but also in the developed, in those big markets, that crowdfunding can really add great value. But of course, there will be barriers, there will be different elements that we need to improve. But in general, that is great potential. There's a lot to be done.
Thank you. Since we are talking about the big market and also the development as well as access to the finance, maybe we should turn back to Drew coming from the World Bank perspective. What do you think the significant potential crowdfund compared to other sources of funding in the development? What's the unique advantage of crowdfunding compared to other sources of financing in the developing markets and the big markets?
So there's a couple of ways to think about it. But I think one of the key ones is crowdfunding is much more spontaneous financing than many others. It does not require the institutional construction that you might find in more established financing vehicles. So we're seeing in different countries the speed at which the operations can get up there, the ability to replicate business models from other countries and the platform models. And as Jonathan was mentioning, the technology is there in many of these countries, so people can quickly pull them together. So it's where we're seeing it in countries that I've focused on, India in particular. We're seeing the speed at which they're able to really get out there. One thing that Dustin also mentioned is that there's no lack of financing needs. So again, this can line up very, very well with it. And again, to all of the comments earlier today about aligning the meaningful investors and with enterprises, it's a very strong platform for doing that. One of the challenges we will see, of course, as all of these start to scale, is the regulatory environment starts to layer in and will slow it down at some point, or at least bring those considerations in. But again, many of them to date have been able to manage their operations in what we'll call gray market situations as the environments are building up.
Thank you. Since one of the very related parts is coming from the students, because the students are not funded by the stereotypes or by the establishments. So let's talk about how students can leverage crowdfunding. And I'm sure Scott has a lot of experience. One of his other titles is Director of Student Entrepreneurship and Engagement at the University of Toledo. So, Scott, please share with us your thoughts.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to impart is the similar perspective that I give students when I first engage them. For reference, the students that I have taken under my wing as a mentor for the last 2 years are freshmen. These are 17 and 18-year-old young people. And they showed tremendous interest in the subject, but had no conception of what crowdfunding was. But as someone else mentioned today, when I asked them for a survey, I would say, so who knows about crowdfunding? Raise your hand, and no hands go up. And then I say, who's heard of Kickstarter? Half the hands go up, maybe more. So it's starting to seep in, and I think that the more and more that we see students taking the lead at testing their ideas in the marketplace, the more investors are going to follow. So we're kind of at that stage. It's been a bit of a teeter-totter for a while, but my experience with the students at the University of Toledo has been incredibly enlightening. Perhaps I was fortunate because the students that we chose to do the pilot program from the College of Engineering. I consulted for 2 years, and I think that engineers, by and large, are disciplined and fairly linear in their process. So perhaps it was easier for them to follow steps and guidance in a way that, although it was self-paced, meaning that there was no credit for this course, there was no cost for this course, it was something that they had to do of their own initiative. That is what came back as probably the overriding principle was a mission. I'd like to tell them that 95% of success is just showing up. And I can speak from experience so many times. I had no idea why I was where I was, but as soon as I was there, I realized why I had come. So you'll find that to be the case too. So even if it's uncomfortable, ask questions, because there's no bad news. Just show up and you'll be much better. But one of the first lessons I gave them was from my experience early on as an entrepreneur, and I really started as an entrepreneur at age 13 in the Water Ski Club, if that makes any sense. But the thing about working in the entrepreneurial space is that it requires tremendous conviction, tremendous patience, tremendous energy, and tremendous trust. So my first piece of advice is, as you venture into your first idea, or participate with someone else on their idea, try to only work with people you love. And I know love isn't a word that you hear very often in a business context, but it's absolutely critical, because I'll tell you this, I have a wife and 2 children, and I spend more time with my students than I do with my family. And so at the end of the day, I really better love these kids, otherwise I'm beating myself up every time I go home and see my own children say, where have you been all day and night? And the truth is, when you get done with the entrepreneurship work, if you decide you don't want to be an entrepreneur, which is entirely viable, not everybody can handle the workload, it's not easy. It's uncertain, it's nerve-wracking, it's producing. All of these things are true, but the one time that you just hit it, you will never be able to go back, because it's truly engaging. So work with people you love, and make sure that the people you're spending the majority of your waking hours with in life are people that you genuinely get along with and understand. It's really, really important. There's nothing worse than driving to work dreading, or sitting in a subway dreading who you have to see when you walk in for the next 8 hours. So that's a big one. As far as entrepreneurship development, that's my focus. And crowdfunding has a beautiful addition to the business of entrepreneurship education. And entrepreneurship and education typically are 2 words even in the same phrase oftentimes. Universities focus more on core skills, preparing people for employment as employees. And we're finding universities, especially the smaller universities that need to compete against the larger universities, are really apt to this. So if any of you are at universities that do not feature entrepreneurship as a minor, I would try to convince you to approach your administration to change that, and maybe find some mentors, retired mentors who are willing to come in and dedicate some time to help develop that discipline. As far as the segueing into crowdfunding, it is the perfect dynamic for student entrepreneurs, because, as I said before, students have such strong funds, they're amazing networkers, it is inherent. So I take a survey, and one of the first things in advising someone the viability of a potential crowdfunding offering is to survey the size of their social capital, meaning how many people do they know well enough that will respond to a message when they send that message, whether it's a text message, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call. Crowdfunding campaigns require all of the above and more. And so, you have to develop disciplines in so many different phases of what otherwise would be a job of someone else. So you're going to learn about marketing, you're going to learn about sales, you're going to learn about design. All of these things are critical. So either learn them or find people that know them, that you love, and then form a team. At that point, you've got the right ingredients. But in the social capital component of it, which is fascinating, because there's no guarantee that if you know 300 people, which by my surveys, most of the kids in my class have 200, 300 names in their address book, in their phone at that moment. That is tremendous social capital. And they don't hesitate for a second to send out a mass note to all of them or to a dozen of them at any time. So take home that you probably already have the social capital built in. You probably already have the communication abilities built in. It's just about making the message right that reaches them. So I think that the next phase of the entrepreneurship development program that I offered for the university is going to introduce crowdfunding training at the the same time that we do entrepreneurship training. So some students will be learning how to commercialize their ideas. Some students will be learning how to help them fund their business as soon as their ideas are ready. So it's a wonderful balance to both sides. So even if you're not a creative thinker, you have a role in entrepreneurship by helping others find the finances that they need.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll come back to share. I hope you can share with us more examples of what kind of initiatives students brought forward in terms of crowdfunding. But now let's hear from Scott Picken first. What's your take on the role of crowdfunding in the market, especially Y Institute, the big ecosystem for crowdfunding?
您好，今早你很高兴，我做不太好，但是我有跟做分享，让我说英文。That's the best I can give you from Africa. For me, crowdfunding is something I'm very excited about. I wrote a dissertation on this in 1998, and we actually discussed this on the telephone. And I think what most people are missing is that it's actually been around for centuries. Basically, all that crowdfunding is social collaboration, and not just with technology. In Africa, we've got things called the stockpiles. $80 billion a year is invested through stockpiles. In the Jewish side is the synagogue, and I can't pronounce it, but in China here you've got B1. It's all the same stuff. It's people coming together, it's people trusting each other, it's having transparency, and it's having all your interests aligned. And someone mentioned it earlier, the old traditional business are all about profit at all costs, and that's not your interesting around. So for me, what's truly, truly exciting about crowdfunding is that really it's taking everything that we've learned over centuries and it's just allowing it to take place through technology. Now, when we extrapolate that and we say, well, what's that going to have an impact on the world and as an ecosystem? What fascinates me and why I'm so excited to be here in China is that the emerging markets is where it's going to happen and have the biggest impact. In America, in Australia, in England, it's still a bit of, it's a gadget, it's a fad, it's nice to have. Whereas where I come from, it's a necessity. We have poverty all over the place. You talk about the need for financing, you're 100% right, but with that comes education as well. And so what technology is going to allow is, when you take mobile adoption and you add education first, and then you have the ability to create wealth, to create businesses, it truly is the answer to solve the greatest challenge we've got on this planet, which is the wealth gap. And the wealth gap is actually getting worse and worse and worse. In Davos last year at the World Economic Forum, it was rated as the #1 threat to sustainability. And we here, every single person in this room, is sitting with the opportunity to solve that problem in this generation. And that's what truly, truly excites me, because it's not about scarcity, it's about abundance. But saying all of that, and we spoke about this morning, there is going to be a boom and there is going to be a bust. And so people have to be very careful in terms of understanding the space. They can't just get all excited and just think that everything's going to win, because that's not the case. There are fundamentals of life, of nature, and of business, and they're still going to come.
Your attention to this, we'll come back to you more in a second. Let me turn to Xiaojun first. So in China in specific, what sectors do you think are most potential for crowdfunding? Or what NGO non-profit sector or the for-profit sector?
Yeah, and thank you. And this is just to go back to the crowdfunding models that we're talking about. Some models are really just more toward the non-for-profit, and the others really more toward the for-profits. For example, like donation-based, no one just can get any benefit out of it, return. So from that, this is pure. But so from the model itself, that it's already clear that if you choose this model, which already define who you are, why you need that money, and this for-profit or not for-profit. But in general, I think in China, what is really the biggest opportunity here is that we are still the world manufacturer, and which means that we have a huge amount of production need to be done. And but again, that's because of the cost of labor is really increasing fast, and we need to upgrade the whole system. And to do that, that there's a lot of new money need to be just put into the place, and to change the traditional business model. And so that's why a lot of crowdfunding models are horizontal, but actually the vertical here is really, really important for China. And when I say vertical, I mean that, for example, in renewable energy development and or in energy efficiency projects, and there's a traditional model of how this project can be developed, how finance can be structured, and who will just invest, and then who will get benefit out of it. But if you just look at how crowdfunding can really just change this model, then to just get more renewable energies with less cost, to just provide better incentive for those, for example, solar, the rooftop owner or the land that the farmers really have. And crowdfunding can really just unlock those opportunities, which they didn't have. And the example, there are a lot of examples, like solar mosaic in US, and which really just change the renewable energy development model, and then making the leasing model becoming the early ownership, and then after you just for the owner of the project, before crowdfunding, that you can only just lease it, and after 15 years you still lease it. You can never just own it, and the energy benefit you cannot get after 15, 20 years because you don't have that initial upfront investment. But with crowdfunding, that you can own it after 15 years or 20 years. From that moment on, that's all the profits you generate from your rooftop, from your farms, are yours. And then definitely there are more rooftop open for you. So yeah, this is just really, within a very short period of time that then they were able to just expand the solar in US. And also they get a lot of, new additional money jump into the field. And when you just look at the vertical, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and also the agriculture and all that, what is really the key sectors in China. Crowdfunding, the best potential for crowdfunding is really not only about raising money. It's really about how to use the crowdfunding thinking, or if we just use Chinese wording, internet platform, or these are very important. How to use the new idea, new framework, to look at the vertical, to look at the sectors, to look at traditional business models, say that before we do it in such a manner, such a way, which is costly, which is really not sustainable in the long term, and now with crowdfunding, with the cost sharing mechanism, with more players jumping into the field, with more risk taker who will just helping us to reshape this model, then we can really just move together as a real economy-wide moving together to move to the next stage.
Thank you, that sounds very encouraging. I really want to come back to Picken, and just how you mentioned the boom and the bust. What are the risks or the potential risks we should be aware of? We have potential here already.
Yeah, so I mean, you were talking, Sachin was talking a lot about verticals. So one of the most successful verticals so far has been real estate. And I'm just going to use that to explain the risks. So what's happened in that space is that there's something like over 100 portals now around the world. And you've got a couple of them that really truly understand real estate and the fundamentals of real estate. And then some of them can build a nice fancy little platform. And the thing is, it's not about just having a fancy platform. It's not about just understanding real estate. You've got to understand the intersection between the two. So from a risk perspective, in America at the moment, there are a lot of nice projects, sexy projects. But most investors will know that you don't make money from sexy projects. And it's down to, so I mean, as an example, one of the things that we've been highly successful in is medical buildings. Doctors always need premises. People need doctors, no matter how bad the economy is. And my point being is that you're coming back to basic fundamentals. Is it sexy? No. Does it make you money long term? Is it sustainable? Yes. So I think what people need to be careful of, both investors and providers, and to be fair to platforms themselves, is that if they don't understand the fundamentals of the industry they're in, then it's going to create problems in the future. And that's why I strongly believe in the vertical space. I know nothing about renewable energy, So if I was going to invest, I would go to him because he's the expert. But that's the challenge I see going forward. And in any excitement, there's a great saying where I come from that a turkey can fly a hurricane. And so when things are going really well, everyone looks good. But when the market turns, that's when you're going to find the true players. And I think maybe all of us need to heed the advice of my chairman, which is he always says to me, go fast, slowly, my friend.
Thank you. And if I can turn this into Ju as well, what's your take on verticals?
So I again come at this from the World Bank perspective on a lot of things we're thinking about at the moment in terms of impact investing and the opportunities there. So I come back to your meaningful and relevant comments of earlier today, and where crowdfunding does line up with that very well. So we're into Jen's points earlier, and always the other, which was about the access to capital, lack of capital availability. We've got meaningfulness, relevancy, and local kind of coming out of the other comments, and then so where I can see, and we're seeing this in some of the enterprises that I work with, are sectors like health and education. So we're starting to see these social sectors. And then of course what we'll see is a new generation of tools of how you fund these. And again, something I've been working on in the early stages, and it's just now starting to kind of go global around these impact on finances. We should layer that structure, which is basically finances for nonprofits or for-profits, but they are return-based finances for social services, where government commits to pay for the services if they achieve certain outcomes. It's a product that aligns really, really well with the relevancy and the meaningfulness of what we think crowdfunding is bringing forward. So I can see a substantial growth in developing countries and emerging markets where there's underserved needs in these various sectors. Of course, renewable energy will be in there because they're very credible business models, and it speaks to everybody's environmental nature as well. So again, I can see environmental, clean water fits into that again very much as well. Education, health, and of course it will be very regional by its needs. You just take a global comment for a moment and step out of China just for a second. In Africa, we're going to see a lot around health. We recognize that those countries are at high risk if they don't address the health structures. So governments are finally now recognizing they have to invest in it and create business models that haven't been met to date.
But I mean, on that note, that's what I love about crowdfunding because it's common sense. Like in Africa, we need houses and hospitals. But I mean, why do we need regulators to help me decide where I should put my money in the hospitals in Africa? Like, it's not brainer.
There's actually a segment to that I was taking notes on my colleagues who were talking, sorry. But they make a lot of sense, and one of the things that just rang through to me was again, from the perspective of a student, or any young entrepreneur, particularly with students in the United States, and I don't know your education system here, but many universities are facing fiscal crisis, and this is for a number of reasons. We've had an explosion of what some call diploma mills. These are both bricks and mortar schools and virtual schools, and I happen to have relevant and expertise in online education, having helped create the first distance learning university in the world. And we did, at the time, we had no idea where we were going. We were simply applying technology to a dated and outdated system. And if you consider education at its newest is probably a 400-year-old business model, it is very ripe for disruption. And so when it came to seeing how crowdfunding is going to make an impact in this space as well, I look at it more as a situation of need and an opportunity. Not only are we seeing a lesser quality of education in many cases, but a much higher cost of education, to the point where the average U.S. student graduates with $30,000 in debt just from his education, which is astounding. And that puts a ton of pressure on the student himself to take that job, whatever that first job happens to be. He's going to have to take it because he's going to have the college loan to pay off. He's going to have probably a house rent or mortgage, and God forbid he starts a family too early, he might have children and education for them as well. So the purpose, in my opinion, of the fusion between crowdfunding and education is all about need, more about need and opportunity, because credit is hard to find. The conditions with which to get credit are more difficult by the year, and I don't know that that's going to change. So as far as the opportunities at a university for crowdfunding, It is a perfect complement, and when you consider the economy of scale within just one university, my university is probably typical in size for most state universities. We have about 25,000 students. Again, if we're only talking a typical startup, startup in the business space needs, $50,000 roughly to start with legal expenses and other costs. For a student venture, that cost is maybe $5,000. It's almost nothing by comparison because they have looked at, they're not looking for bricks and mortar, they're not financing some long manufacturing scheme. These are generally, widgets and little tech trees. So for them, it's very attainable and it's very possible for them simply to tap their own network of students within the university, and there's all the money that you need. You don't have to tap conventional economic development authority, you don't have to tap the venture capital or investment banks. You don't have to even tap the rich uncle if they don't want to. They can simply find all the capital they need right on campus. 25,000 students, $1 a piece, and that's 5 times more than we need. So again, it comes down to, is that $1 worth it to the person pledging it? Obviously, for equity, it's a different story. For rewards and donations, are really vibrant potential benefit. And then on the other side of it, as the students graduate, they're also faced with a declining job market, a lower starting salary at most jobs as we convert, what we thought was going to be the brilliant future of the information age. The information economy is now moving perhaps more into a service economy. And those jobs are minimum wage. And so try paying down a $30,000 debt on a minimum wage and still have a good quality of life. It's very daunting. So as we get closer and closer to these horizons, it's time to consider that crowdfunding through student entrepreneurship is a necessity. It's not just an opportunity.
We can come back to Xiaocheng again. So crowdfunding, something interesting about that is very localized and very much relationship-based. So in that regard, do you think anything unique about Chinese society in terms of how the social fabric and how that will influence how crowdfunding is carried out in China?
Yeah, and in this case, that actually China market is a little bit different from other market, and for crowdfunding, that's credit history and then the trust among members in the society are very, very important. But sadly to say that China is not a society with high trust among people. So that but again, that's the interesting phenomenon. Although we don't have high trust, but crowdfunding is just grow so fast with this speed, and what happened? It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense just in China. The reason for that is one, that it's really just go back to the shadow banking, that all the savings that Chinese have and also very few opportunities Chinese population have for investment. There's money at hand, and there's no investment opportunities. Where to find the opportunity to invest? Okay, crowdfunding actually is, many times you can just hear that crowdfunding is used to legalize some of the shadow banking type of money, and which was not legal before. So that's why a lot of money which was just coming to the crowdfunding space was not really from the crowd. It's from the shadow banking type of investment before. So that's the first thing. And the second part of this story is that again, this unique is again, that's when you were talking about the student loan, and I want to just mention this, that it's so lucky to be a Chinese children of Chinese, because you never need to pay any loans, and your parents are supposed to pay your education and even your marriage and everything. So then you will never need to pay exactly. So that's why a lot of parents are under high pressure before they got married. Then they start to just save for their children. And again, in the bank, that the interest rate is like 0.00 something, and then the stock market is highly risky. They don't have this market is high, they lost a lot of money. So again, without a lot of opportunity, investment opportunity, and then looking even for non-shadow banking money, but just from savings from the crowd. They really are looking for alternative financing mechanism which can really help them to enter into a space where they can just make more profits, and then that can just be used for the future education of their grandchildren, for example. So then that actually provided crowdfunding such a unique opportunity that there's the parents or the grandparents becoming one of the big crowd in the crowdfunding space, and then put money there and then looking to use it as a saving, which actually again go back to your question that it creates high risk. Those parents, those grandparents, they don't have the investment experience, they don't have knowledge, then they want to use it as a savings or very stable, very safe investment with high returns. But they don't know actually crowdfunding is also high risk. And then that actually, make the Chinese market is again very unique in the sense that we have huge amount of players who are not really well trained to enter into the market, but are the big market player. And then that's why the government or the regulators and also the platforms a lot of demand or the pressure that we need to just really improve that space to just protect those populations.
I just wanted to add to what you were saying on the transparency side. I mean, when you take in real estate, the Chinese investors last year alone invested $15 billion overseas in the UK, Australia, and America. And generally, the stuff that they are sold is not the best stuff. There's no transparency. There's a huge amount of fees. I mean, I've been buying houses in Atlanta, America. We buy them for 110, 120. They get sold here in China for 165. We earn an 8% plus net yield, and the Chinese get paid 5%. So the middleman is literally taking it out. And what technology does is it cuts out all the middlemen. If you think of Uber just as an example, and that's why I believe it's actually a necessity. Because what it's going to do is that you've got people here that are not only looking to invest locally, but are looking to invest offshore. And all that they want is a trusted solution. I call it the bridge of safety. And I believe technology can supply that. And I mean, we've seen it in multiple different sectors where we can ultimately rely on our crowd to determine whether something's a good investment or not. And I would go as far as to challenge you, Jacek, in terms of the risk of crowdfunding, because it depends on the different sectors that you're in. But I mean, if you've got, as an example, a real estate player who's got 30 years worth of experience and consistently delivers good returns, there's a very good chance that he's going to continue, or she is going to continue to deliver those returns. The difference is in the past, you or I couldn't get involved with them because they were really so successful, they only had the real top people, and now we can get involved, and I think that's what's truly exciting.
And for the other two speakers that are coming from outside China, how do you see, does crowdfunding take off in other societies similar to China with low social trust and with insufficient credit rating system?
So, I guess the question I'll have for the sector is, we talked a lot today about, again, the linkage from the enterprise that's being funded and the individuals that are funding it. Again, as Paul was talking, beyond the first layers of friends and families and beyond that. And if we're going to talk scale and really get to the international kind of thing, it's going to be about data. So my question will ultimately be, in many places, will the data be there? I think we had a question earlier today on insurance programs, and quickly we came to the conclusion there wasn't enough data to support some of those happening in the way we would like to see it. So I'm very optimistic. The one question I will raise is until we have the data, without the data, and I think that has in my chart, you can't have the transparency. Without that transparency, you cannot move beyond a trusted friend and into a extended trusted friend, because they're looking at data and numbers that really believe in. And so that's going to be a critical component to it. So the great thing is that, generally speaking, the internet forces data. It puts so much out there. So I think we'll be able to see that happen and allow us to scale. We are definitely seeing that trend in other places. So it's really about harvesting and harnessing the data availability so you can get beyond just the while keeping it relevant. It's really, I think, I view that more as an emotional statement than you were talking earlier today, a geographical one. And therefore, with the data, you can get beyond just your neighborhood friends.
Is it not possible though for a hybrid model? So if you look at Alibaba, to use your context of data, it's hard to know whether a company's going to be successful if they've only been going 1 or 2 years. But what Alibaba's done, they don't necessarily have the social proofing, but they do have a third party that goes in and vets whether that company exists, etc., etc. And I truly believe there'll be a couple of stages in this, and one of them will be the hybrid model where the KPMGs of the world will actually be going in, giving an external kind of stamp of trust, and then people will be able to rely on that. Because, as an example, whether it's business or real estate, it takes years to know whether someone's successful or not.
Going further to the both of your points, statistics are illuminating at times, and as it regards local economic development. Is there anyone here in a smaller local economic development capacity? Kidding. The nature of what drives me, what makes me wake up every morning and want to get to school to bring these kids through my program is the notion that just one of them is going to have a functioning business with revenue before they graduate. Not just to pay down the debt. If I can just get one, which would be fantastic, if you consider that we're really graduating 8 startups per semester, and that is condensed down from roughly 20, and that's only in a sample group of 400 students. 300 of them said, I'm in. So we're looking at absolutely no less than 15% of students are going to try entrepreneurship, and they're going to need crowdfunding. If 15% of them, if you look at a campus of 25,000 students, anybody good with math? How many is that? 4,000 potential offerings in a year? Do you have any idea what kind of impact on the local economy would have if even one out of those succeeds? New industries can be created, and especially in a space where we have aging industrial manufacturing base like we have where I'm from. It's invaluable to have an industry, and you can't compete on the local scale, much less the global scale without an industry. And that is what drives me. So that's one of the things. And then the side fact is this: I did a survey this year of all of the employers that come to the job fair to hire kids. And I asked them, I said, one question. Would you be 2 candidates, equal grades, equal experiences, same major? Would you be more likely to hire one that had an entrepreneurial mindset and that followed his entrepreneurial ambition, went through a program like mine, or would you be more interested in the student who just wants to be an employee? Every single one of them said the entrepreneur. And I found that incredibly revealing. It's a change in mindset from the employer standpoint. We just want workers that show up and do the work, monkeys that push the button. Now they want them that can think on their feet, that can adapt to change, and can take initiative and risk and be responsible for it. And that is huge, because I think it comes down to empathy. I think the boss also wants to know that an employee understands his pressure as the man holding the bag. And I like to tell the kids, not every one of you that's going to go down this entrepreneurship track is going to be the guy holding the bag. The investors are going to come back and say, you lost my money. You don't have to be that guy. You don't have to be the guy that's taken all the risk. You could be on a startup team. And I give one good example. If you ask Steve Ballmer or any number 2 man at a major corporation if they minded not being the CEO when it started, they'd say, no, I have no problem with that. He still has a few $1 billion, and I don't think he's complaining. And now it's better, at least not as accurate. But no second man in a startup that succeeds ever minds being the second man. So be on the team.
Okay, one last question from me, and then we'll open up to the floor, questions from the floor. So, Xiaoqun, you talked about risk, and especially part of that in China is driven by the need to invest rather than how much they understand about the sector. So, investor education, that's whose responsibility, and how do we do that in China or the market sense?
And the crowdfunding investor education is a challenge, I think, globally, not only in China, but in almost any country which crowdfunding is emerging or rising, and we are facing this challenge. And the reason for that is clear, that crowdfunding is a new thing. And even we take America or US as the leader of this, and then it's not global 7 years history. So, who really just have experience. And so that's why that is the first message that all the potential crowd investors need to be trained. So then when you just look at this number, it's huge, and in any market. The second part is that where there's a need, there is a supply. And in the US, and I heard a lot of entrepreneurs and who are expert in crowdfunding and actually are looking at this space. And one of them was Rose, and who has the crowdfunding software, and which actually just translate from the VC template and into the crowdfunding template. If you just want to invest for my deal, you go from step 1 to step 2. You actually just go through a due diligence by yourself. And if you don't want to train yourself, and then you cannot invest in my platform. And that actually forces the investors to really work. And I think that is really key if we want to really make that happen. Of course, the platform also has a responsibility in the sense that what crowd are you looking at? And do you want to sustain them? And if you want to sustain them, you have to help them. And of course, that we in China again that we have P2P platform run away. We have equity-based crowdfunding platform closed, and then there were high risk. But if you are a player who want to stay in the field for long enough, you want to just grow together with your investors, which means that you need to invest in this. And of course, the platform should focus on your pay business. That is, make the transaction and also connect the demand with the supply. But if you want to really train your partner, you have to work with others who have expertise and who have the mandate, then work with you and then to just build this type of cross-sector platform or partnership, then to really just provide that supply and for the investor. The third thing is, I think, for the government. And if, again, yesterday in another crowdfunding event I was in, and we are talking about real estate crowdfunding in China. And for example, in US and other places, crowdfunding, the cap is clear. That's beyond a certain number, you are not allowed to use crowdfunding. You have to go through the institutional investors. But here for real estate investor crowdfunding, we have billion-dollar deals, crowdfunding deals. What does that mean? And can they really claim is crowdfunding? Is that legal? And if the government doesn't really intervene, and a lot, for this scale, that is extremely high risk. And without the government to really put the policy or to just clean up the vacuum or the empty space, and then to make the rules clear that in each of the vertical sectors, and originally the business model or the game is as such. When crowdfunding jumping and what are the rules for crowdfunding, what you can play, what you cannot, that has to be set by the policymakers. And unfortunately, that we are already Chinese policymakers moving very fast toward that. But because it's new, there's a lot of new vertical which may need to be regulated, and then it takes time. So we see both risks and opportunities.
Yeah, I agree very much on the education side. For me, I've always said we only do two things. We educate people and we provide solutions. It's that simple. So, for me, when on the investment side, the education is probably the most important part, because you need to invest in yourself and get the education, because then you can make the right decisions. Rather than gut feel decisions. So, you talk about a real need in China, and I agree. I mean, you can see it. But the education is actually the most important part, and then providing the solution side, and that ultimately will drive a sustainable model long term. It's not about quick wins, and that education side is so critically important. And for us personally, Dr. Wolf we've actually brought him on board. We're actually building Scott Julius and an entire university online platform to be able to provide people the education so they can make the right decisions. Because there's many different cycles for an investor as well. The institutional versus the are completely different at many different levels. So, it's about providing that for people, which will give them the right information and systems to succeed long term. And ultimately, that should be all of our responsibility to help people win long term. That's the only thing that will be sustainable.
There's two things too. Investor education or equity in the U.S. is a mandate. So it's part of the law. So we are bound to have to create some schema for certifying that an educator, that an investor knows his risk and is aware. It's not a bad thing, because if you look at it as a standpoint from an offering, as the issuer, if you're the entrepreneur, all of a sudden you're going from having a couple of dozen investors potentially to having potentially thousands of investors. So missing one deadline, busting one expectation from any one of those investors can create an echo chamber with ripples that can cripple your company's time, because investor relations is hard enough, but when you have thousands of investors potentially complain, you won't be able to get any work done. So it's to everybody's benefit that the investors are educated, and I think that that's part of what's driving the discussion there. The other part that I wanted to miss was that any entrepreneur knows that failure is generally inevitable. In the course of a career, it's inevitable. Anybody who says they haven't failed is a liar. And so when it comes down to students in this case, the opportunity to start with students at age 18 and have them for 4 years until they graduate gives them 8 semesters to try it. Just try it at almost no cost and no risk, because nobody expects a student to bat 1,000, to knock it out of the park on their first try, especially when it's only on giving you $50 or $100. $50 or $100 again, and a couple hundred kids on campus is all you need. So expectations are pretty low when it comes to student entrepreneurship, and yet the yield is incredibly high if any success is possible. And if a student is lucky enough to jump into 3 or 4 startup teams during the course of his career, his odds for success have gone up that much more. And here's a good one. I used to do a lot of consulting with venture capitalists, and one of the things that they love to say is, we don't invest in ideas, we invest in people. So if you had a good idea, you're going to have another good idea. That's great. We're going to bank on you if you can show up, if you can get the work done. So when it comes to trying and failing, there was another one. I was at a conference in Ann Arbor, Michigan, many years ago, and one of the venture capitalists said, "Welcome to the event," and he asked everybody, show of hands, tell us what you're here for, blah blah blah. And then he said, "So how many entrepreneurs in the room?" And all the hands go up. This is a venture conference, and he goes, "So." How many of you have had more than one venture? A couple of hands stay up. And he goes, so how many of you have never had failure? And like 3 guys kept their hands up, and he goes, right, you can leave. And he just points to the door and says, you can go now. And they're like, seriously? He goes, no, I'm not, but seriously, I would never invest in it, no matter what your idea is. And they're like, why? And he goes, because you've never failed, you're probably going to fail next, and I don't want to be the guy that loses my money. So try it now.
Kind of a summary point for me, as I think about this, having done finance for a very long career, is finance is not going away. It is an industry that's been there for a long time. And the interesting thing about crowdfunding is the flexibility of crowdfunding really can start to solve its own problems. And so to me, there's just going to be a tipping point. I don't know when it is or what's going to trigger it, but institutionalized finance as we know it today, the cost structure associated with it, the risk cost of analytics, they're not sustainable in a world where technology is increasingly breaking down barriers. And so I do believe that with technology, with the flexibility of the platform, that while there are risk barriers and things like that, the crowdfunding that we just mentioned, we'll work our way through it, and the opportunities come. You heard single it's a no-brainer. There really is a very long path here for success, especially in a market of the scale of something like China or India, where there's just so much demand for capital and so much potential to apply it. And again, with the technology adaptation that's coming along with it all. To me, it's a, again, when I think of my venture capital days, the second thing I always think about it's not about the big idea, it's about the big execution, to your point, but it's also about the scale of the market. If there's enough market, we'll figure a way to get through. And this is, I think, one of those opportunities.
With that, we'll open up to the floor and answer questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. Mr. Lemon first. Pass the mic.
中国创业合伙人的组织的方法。我们就是在3月份上线，在2个月时间发展了700多个队伍，发展速度非常快。这里面有1/3是高超的工作。今天上午我听了一下我是特别想发言，因为我看到这个会的这个主题实际上focus在一个就是生态构建。那当我们谈到生态的话我第一个想法就是说，什么叫生态，是吧？它是这个词源于自然生态，进入到我们现在的互联网，包括我们现在讲互联网基因的crowdfunding。我在想，如果 crowdfunding 把它改成 network， 那又会是一种什么样的概念？network funding， 因为在互联网加的时代，甚至很多现在的互联网大咖都在谈到下一个世纪是大数据，对吧？人与人之间的这个交流，是应该走在前面还是走在后面？我曾经看到一个报道，好像是 PwC 做的报道，他谈到一个概念，是下个世纪是 H2H 时代。我觉得 crowdfunding 是建立在共享经济的基础上产生出来的。那我们现在刚才小陈也提到，这个东西是新鲜的，在美国也仅仅7年的历史。我们现在来谈构建生态，首先一个我们想弄清楚构建生态的基础是什么。在中国的这个生态环境里，它特色的有一个文化，有一个体制，我们缺少诚信 integrity， 我们人与人之间可能缺少 trust。在这种环境下，这种生态环境下 crowdfunding 在中国是发展成什么样的方式？它跟美国不一样。在座的台上有美国，有澳大利亚，还有非洲因为在西方的经济体制和这个法律架构上，包括在美国，我认为金融发展的历史就是 ethics and compliance 发展的历史，就是合规发展的历史。我认为生态建设，我们面临最大的挑战实际上是合规。首先得有合规，也就是说，你这个生态大家怎么生活，大家得有一个规则。好，谁来制定这规则？是政府先行，还是我们全民创业？大家现在开始来构想。在美国也可能是源于自发的商业上的先行，然后政府这个规则的制定者开始跟上。在我们国家也一样，规则永远是滞后的。所以我说了这么多的概念实际上我关心的是生态构建，我们要构建什么东西？构建3个东西还是4个东西？是构建诚信，还是构建规则法律框架？恐怕这是我们在互联网加的时代，人与人之间交往越来越频繁我们现在的经历已经从传统的经济转型最大的，我认为最大的趋势、最大的变化就是人与人之间的交往沟通，通过平台，通过互联网这个工具越来越通达。这个给我们提出的最大挑战就是诚信。我们政府要做的，我们大家各位专家要做的就是合规。我们怎么样建立我们中国现在这个社会环境下的这个体制下的这个道德与合规恐怕我们还要强调一些道德 ethics 这就是我的一个简单的一个感想吧。谢谢。
Now we're talking about constructing the ecosystem, what are the key elements of the ecosystem, and would that be the social ID and trust system, would that be the legal system, or which one comes first? And these type of things, what you had is about these components. And for the compliance part, we have to have rules who will be the person who will the society, and which one comes first.
Since I have the advantage to just understand the language and also to think more already, and I would like to start from the what are the driving elements for crowdfunding. Then we talk about the rising of internet technology, and then we are talking about the rising of the social network, and we are talking about how to say, using that to connect to the business opportunity. And so all that, actually, when we talk about the ecosystem, we're talking about how to just make all the elements just working better. And if we just go back to the World Bank crowdfunding report, it has a crowdfunding ecosystem concept. We don't claim, I still say we, and the report didn't claim that this is the framework, but it definitely had 4 elements, from the cultural element, the social part, the economic part, and also the policy or regulation. So when you're talking, actually all elements are what we are included in the ecosystem that we are trying to build. Of course, your understanding, China is different from other countries, like other countries are different from China. So that's why when we talk about these 4 elements, and then we have to look at each element in each country, and what are the barriers, and where are we now, and where we are behind compared with others, or the benchmarks. So those are the elements that we need to, for example, you gave the example that we don't have trust. Then that trust is what on the social side. And then, for example, if you see that we don't have the policy ready now, and then that's the policy regulatory part, etc. So then the elements are clear, and it's just in different countries, based on the different situation, we need to build stronger of different elements.
For me, if I look at an ecosystem, what's more important, the elephant or the ant? And it's neither. They both are fundamentally important to make the whole ecosystem work. So, I don't think it's a question of one comes first or the other comes first. And if I was to put the responsibility on one person, it ultimately is the platforms. Because really they need to make sure that they've got the integrity, that they are really truly looking after their clients in the best interest long term. And at the moment, as an example, in America, there's a real push by the Silicon Valley venture capitalists to do deals. Okay, that basically you get your funding based on the number of deals you do. Now that doesn't mean that those deals are quality, and that will lead to long-term problems. So I believe that ultimately it's not the regulators, it's not even necessarily the investors who have to be educated. It's the people who are responsible right from the beginning to make sure that they're putting safe quality investments or whatever it is on it. And therefore, one of the reasons I'm excited to be part of something like this is that we as an industry need to regulate ourselves. I actually think that's our most important thing. And as long as we've got the interests of our investors long term, I think that's the most important thing we can achieve.
I think to complement that, and a brilliant point, to get to the reality of it is unfortunately the government kind of controls the discussion at this stage because of the control of the banking. So the regulations probably will come first, at least in our country, they will come first. However, we should hope that with the metrics, as the field starts to level out and become more predictable, that the marketplace itself will either drive down some of those regulations and make it more accessible and easy, because it did work as well as it could, or it will become right with problems and they'll raise the regulatory issues to back up those problems. So it's kind of it's a chicken and the egg really, but getting to the point of self-management in that regard, the beautiful thing about technology in this space is with transparency, you cannot hide. You cannot hide if you're a bad actor. You cannot hide if you're a bad firm. You can no longer hide. So everything is out there on the table. So I think that in itself, just by the nature of the beast, will help in the process of figuring out the issues.
I'm going to add a small story to the issue of transparency and legitimate skepticism. First of all, come back to Jason's comment earlier today. It was not a percentage, fractional percentage of fraud that's happened to date. This is important. But it was recently in India at a presentation around innovative financing in an organization, Flipkart, any of you that know Flipkart, which is an online shopping, they have extended credit to their enterprises that are selling products through it. And they're using the data of how well they're treating their customers as one of the characteristics of payments, and whether there's any complaints about the products about how they'll extend credit. And so they were talking about how they're moving into the finance sector. And one that's equally skeptical and not less aggressive is the Indian market. And so quickly the question came up, yeah, but those people can just, close down their shop today and open within 24 hours a new business code and be out there fraudulent. And they said, again, this is where data plays to our benefit. We can see exactly who these people are. We can see where they're going from the file server. So again, one of the things about this is that technology will be the friend of a lot of this. The transparency can't get hidden here. And this, I think I come back to your point, all this allows for the self-regulation that actually can't happen in some more institutionalized or closed door sectors, or not sectors, I'm sorry, but institutions.
Thank you. So, second question from the lady.
就用中文吧，大部分的听众用中文。我想问一下，就是关于这个早上我也提到，生态实际上是每个人自己决定的，就像你生活的环境，就是有可能像美国人他喜欢那样的生态，中国人喜欢那样的生态，这都无可厚非。那我们从一个企业，我想问的是关于一个企业创业的事情，因为最近我也投资了一个年轻人的一个众筹的平台，我呢跟他们之间有一点思想的这个碰撞，但是我不肯定我是对还是他对，因为大家都走着看，实践是检验真理的唯一标准。所以我现在想探讨就是说，比如说我想构建一个互联网金融的平台，首先我是这样一个定义，然后我再根据我的需要构建平台才去买房子、买种地、种草、引进猫啊狗啊什么才去配置，对吧？一般是这样。那我就想问一下，像他们这样建立一个互联网金融平台，我是应该按照互联网去配置呢，还是应该按照金融去配置？现在主要的纠结就是在这儿。因为如果是按照金融这么一个定义去配置的话，那肯定更多的是在风险防范方面这个侧重。如果我是按照互联网方面，我就无所谓客户，我只要用户，只要传播，只要快，只要怎么样。但实际上这个中间呢是有一点矛盾的，就是说在你同一个企业发展的时候，在这个方向上和你的配置上，包括你的精力、你的钱、人力、物力的投向上，所以这个是我想问的第一个问题，就是从这个你也教了你们学生啊，包括 Scott， 我也知道你做这个房地产融资非常有经验，所以呢也想请教一下。这第一个，第二个就是关于在这个，可能我还是按照传统的关于利益分配，我一直有一个没有解决的问题，就是说 crowdfunding 呢送钱来大家都很开心，分钱的时候我总觉得这个将来是一个会不会是一个潜在的问题？因为从我假设呢我个人办企业，我希望我的股东越少越好。因为股东越少，做决定越快，而且大家统一越容易。如果我有1万个股东，我的天哪，我得去跟每个人去沟通，这个成本太高了，而且可能有100个方向，我就没办法动了。我不介意跟他们分利益，我愿意有1万个、10万个、1个亿的我的利润的股东，但不是法律上我的股权的股东。所以我也想问一下这个问题，看你们是怎么思考的？谢谢。
谢谢。
因为又是有这个优势，我可以先说哈。然后首先我觉得第一个问题就在于你去创业的时候，okay, I change to English. For all startups, when you start, that you need to know your strengths and what you want to do. And so to start a business, you can start from the demand-driven process or the supply-driven process. And demand-driven means that you know the market, there's a need, and then you have capacity to meet that need. So from that, basically, the process is that you identify the need, and then you design how you can really just supply that. So that is demand-driven side. But from the question you asked, my understanding could be wrong, but seems like it's from supply-driven. That I either to just supply this or supply that, and then to just look for that who need that. And even from supply-driven, that could be difficult because again, that you can supply many things, and finally that you may just lose the focus or even lose your strengths. So that's the first comment. And the second question, what you have.
The second question is the profit sharing.
Right. For profit sharing, actually, there's two questions. The first question is really, for each model, the beautiful equity-based model is already very clear that, what share and whether you have voting right or you don't have. So if you don't have, then it doesn't matter. You just your money, you have to show you get your dividends, and that's all. You don't really get engaged in that process. But again, of course, it depends on which type of equity model you are looking at. If you're looking at the angel invest model, that many of those, although they call it crowdfunding, and the investors are no more than 10. So it's very manageable, it's really small number of investors. But of course, if you're really talking about the smallholder, small investor equity-based model, that you have more, but you can definitely define the voting rights, just manage that.
I would highly recommend, I'm not sure if it's been translated, but I highly recommend a book called Bold, B-O-L-D, by Peter Diamandis, if you truly want to understand, and if I've understood your question properly. And the reason behind that is that he pretty much says get behind a wave and then wait for it to come. But Scott said something in the video that is really important there. You've got to find something that you're passionate about, because you've got to have the staying power to wait for that wave. So that would answer for me the first question. Find something that you really enjoy and then stick to it. Don't try and do houses and agriculture, because they're completely different, if I've understood that right. The second thing that I think is very important, that I personally has really helped me in my life, is a thing that an American saying, Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want. And so for me, you know, your word of not wanting to share profits, I would caution that. The more profits you share, the more money you'll make. To the equity holders. Yeah, as I said, from my personal experience, I understand that equity holders, if you've got a lot of them, it can be difficult to make decisions. But I think again, with where technology is going, I see it more as having a lot of raving fans. And together, the bigger we are, the more we can achieve versus me doing it on my own. And Dr. Dolteros has a great saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Okay, we probably have time to take one more question from the audience. The gentleman in the front.
Hello, I'll just ask my question in English. I'm running a business incubator, and we're cooperating with a private fund, and we're trying to build a platform, crowdfunding platform that can allow Chinese investors invest into the U.S. food project, startup project, and also that the U.S. investors invest into the Chinese food startup project, because China got a huge internet market, and the U.S. got the successful experience in starting up companies and so on. And we did some research. There's the Obama administration released the Jobs Act that encouraged the startup somehow, but also there's the foreign exchange regulation and so on and so forth. So my question is that feasible that we can launch a crowdfunding platform that can, you know, let the capital flow across the two countries' border, and, you know, let the investor invest into different countries' good projects? That's the first question. And the second one, you can just take the template. What's your take on the Y Combinator, the YC form, the YC model? Thank you.
The good news is, to answer your question, it is possible. We're doing it. Our company is involved, Migrate, and it's exactly what you're saying. We help people in different countries invest in other countries, and we literally, this year alone, we've done over $30 million, where, as an example, of a really good real estate asset in America, and we've actually had people from 5 different continents invest in that process. So I think the space you're going into is very feasible, and we all know the world's becoming global, and I think really cross-border is where it's going to get really exciting, and it'll be the next step.
With that, I think we'll conclude a very thought-provoking session, and thanks for sharing with us and all the audience your insights. So there's so many beautiful things about crowdfunding. I think at least today we understand more about what constitutes the ecosystem and what role it will play in a big market such as China. And eventually the beauty of that boils down to the transparency and flexibility of meeting a lot of the needs. So please join me in thanking our panelists, and we'll move on to the next session.